All right, I believe we are ready now. One thing I'm not able to do because the screen is turned away from me is actually see when anybody joins the live stream. I can see it once everybody leaves, and I can see all the comments that they make, but I can't see it now because the only thing I can see is the back of my phone. Tonight I want to talk about something that I know we've all dealt with in the past couple of months, and that's the topic of fear. I want to talk about fear, faith. Two explorers were on a jungle safari when suddenly a ferocious lion jumped in front of them. "Keep calm," the first explorer whispered. "Remember what we read in that book on wild animals? If you stand perfectly still and look the lion in the eye, he will turn and run." "Sure," replied his companion. "You've read the book, and I've read the book, but has the lion read the book?" One summer night during a severe thunderstorm, a mother was tucking her small son into bed. She was about to turn the light off when he asked in a trembling voice, "Mommy, will you stay with me all night?" Smiling, the mother gave him a warm, reassuring hug and said tenderly, "I can't, dear. I have to sleep in Daddy's room." A long silence followed. At last it was broken by a shaky voice saying, "The big sissy." On a more serious note, I thought this was kind of neat. How many of you remember the character Black Bart, the bank robber? 1875, about when he started. It's interesting to notice some things about him. Black Bart was a professional thief whose very name struck fear as he terrorized the Wells Fargo stage line. From San Francisco to New York, his name became synonymous with the danger of the frontier. Between 1875 and 1883, he robbed 29 different stagecoach crews. Amazingly, Bart did it all without firing a shot, because a hood hid his face. No victim ever saw his face. He never took a hostage and was never trailed by a sheriff. Instead, Black Bart used fear to paralyze his victims. His sinister presence was enough to overwhelm the toughest stagecoach guard. Thinking about that idea, Black Bart used fear to paralyze those that he was coming after. And you know, we're facing times right now where we can have fear come into our life too, don't we? You know, what are some of the things that we can fear right now? What are some of the things you can think of that might bring fear to our hearts?
The election and what's best for the country.
The politics and where the direction of our country, where it's going to go. Job market. We've got those within our congregation that have been laid off since March. COVID-19, I mean, a big one. You're going to hear about that for months to come. I didn't really think, now I knew I'd have to say this one. What about hurricanes? I mean, I've heard stuff about hurricanes coming up. You know, that's a common thing within North Carolina to think about hurricanes. Here's an uncommon thing that I didn't ever think I would have to say, but yes, we even have to worry about earthquakes. Who would have thought? Sunday morning. How many of y'all felt the earthquake? I did not feel it. I think we were a little bit too far away, but I got a lot of friends that did feel it over closer to Burlington area. My mom felt it, and I thought, okay, you know, 2020 is not, I mean, we're not getting any of the base package of this craziness. We're getting the deluxe package of everything they can throw at us. School, with kids trying to go back and do the distance learning. It's like how much is going to stick and what all is going to do. This is one that has been big for me. Social gatherings. That first time after everything was all said and done, and back in March when I first went into Walmart, that was eerie. Everybody's got the face mask on. Everybody's going and you're going up and down the aisles. It was interesting. It was a little scary. Let me read something from Dr. E. Stanley Jones. I am inwardly fashioned for faith, not for fear. Fear is not my native land. Faith is. I am so made that worry and anxiety are sand in the machinery of life. Faith is the oil. I live better by faith and confidence than by fear, doubt, and anxiety. In anxiety and worry, my being is gasping for breath. These are not my native air. But in faith and confidence, I breathe freely. These are my native air. A Johns Hopkins University doctor says, we do not know why it is that worriers die sooner than non-worriers, but that is a fact. But I, who am simple of mind, think I know. We are inwardly constructed in nerve and tissue, brain cell and soul, for faith and not for fear. God made us this way. To live by worry is to live against reality. We are built to live not in fear, but in faith. The question is, how? And David, I believe, has some great words about that in Psalm 27. Real quick, a little story. In high school, I got a hold of a book called 5 Smooth Stones. It was a little book about this big, spiral bound. It was not, a New York Times bestseller, but in it was Bible verses. Psalm 27 and verse 1 was one of them. Another one that has become my favorite verse, Isaiah 41 and verse 10, was also in there. And the only thing the book asked you to do was to write down the verses 5 times. They said, we want you to memorize these, but the best way we know of that you could memorize these verses is just simply write these verses down 5 times. And Psalm 27:1 was in there. Notice what these first 3 verses of Psalm 27 says. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When evildoers assail me to eat up my flesh, my adversaries and foes, it is they who stumble and fall. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war rise against me, yet I will be confident. Real quick, let me give you 3 truths about fear and how it tries to control our life. Because we live in a time where fear is present. Fear is all around us. So what do? Number 1, life will always be filled with things to fear. Life will always be filled with things to fear. David says, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? That's an interesting statement coming from David. Because think about David's life. What kind of stuff did David have come into his life that we wouldn't blame him for being afraid of? What kind of stuff would like David be facing? We would be like, you know what, I've been scared too. What kind of stuff would be there?
The king tried to kill him. His own children tried to kill him.
He had a king coming after him, had his kids coming after him. And the kids were probably, like David was a big old warrior, so it probably got transferred on to him. So those people got it. Goliath. I mean, really, I mean, when he was right standing up to him, looking up, going, I'm going to come at you in the name of the Lord, Goliath was a big dude. You think about the many things, the political intrigue, the backstabbing, wars, wild animals when he was a shepherd. David didn't have a shortage of things he could be fearful of. And you know what? Same's true of us. Our life is always going to be filled with things we could be afraid of. Think about sickness. I don't want to get sick. I'm pretty sure y'all don't want to get sick. Joblessness, betrayal, robbery, cancer. We could go on all night with things we could be scared of. Anybody know anybody that has like got a weird or weird phobia, something they're like weirdly scared of? Just don't like, something like purple jelly beans or something like that. I guess you could be. My great-grandmother did not in any way, shape, or form like cats at all. Was scared of them, got scratched, I think, when she was a little girl, and because of that was always scared of them. And, that's kind of funny because, a lot of people absolutely love cats. But, our lives will never have a shortage of things to be afraid of. You get a shortage of a lot of things. Who would have thought 2020 would be a year in which we had shortages of toilet paper, of all things? Tylenol, rubbing alcohol, maybe some really important things. Toilet paper? Yeah, important, but who would have thought that? How many of y'all remember gasoline rationing? Any of those times? Shortages, because of all politics and wars and things like that. Let me reveal some truths and things to remember. Truth number one is this: fear will fit into any package. Fear will fit into any package. You ever had a present and you bought a gift bag for it, but the present was too big for the gift bag? Have you ever had that happen? You try to stick it in, and the bag just rips. You ever had? Yes. You got this big thing. I think that's why gift cards are so popular, because it's like they always fit. I mean, you don't ever have to worry about those. There is no place in your life that is so small that fear won't fit. It will fit into any part of your life. Therefore, we have to guard all aspects of our life against controlling an irrational fear. The second truth is this: fear is not an issue of reality, but of reaction. Fear is not an issue of reality, but of reaction. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. Fear is a reaction to something. Fear is a reaction. It's not like heat from the sun where you just go out and, I'm getting hot. Fear is a reaction to a situation. Case in point, you ever been to a haunted house before? Haunted trail, anything like that? For years and years and years, Elon Fire Department did the haunted trail and the haunted forest and the haunted house for Elon Elementary School at their fall festival. Year after year after year they did it. And it was kind of funny. My dad was a firefighter, he was a volunteer firefighter, and I got to help out every once in a while with this. One of the big things was kind of looking at different kids. Some kids, when they see a guy in a mask, they'll scream. You get all the little girls together, and they run away, right? You get a boy dressed up as Batman, you don't know what he's going to do. Because there have been many a time where Batman just goes and punches the guy. He kicks him real hard. He ain't scared, he's just going to knock him out. Fear is a reaction. Fear has to deal with how we react to a situation. David had plenty of things he could have been afraid of. Goliath was big. The army that he faced was real. But what did he say? The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? His focus wasn't on what the problem was. His focus was on God. Ultimately, God was protecting him. We translate that into today. COVID-19, crazy politics, hurricanes, earthquakes, who knows what else. Those are bad things that are happening in 2020. But is God still in control? Absolutely. Here's the other thing to think about. Does our fear in our hearts strengthen the deadliness of the coronavirus? No. It's still under God's sovereignty. Our fear doesn't strengthen the power of a hurricane. No, because it's not about reality, it's about reaction. See, this all goes to the last little truth to remember, is that God's presence is the solution to the problem of fear. God's presence is the solution to the problem of fear. David had it right. The Lord is my light, my salvation, my stronghold. I'm good. God's close. I got him right by my side. I'm good. And when we are close to God, everything else is okay. I remember back in middle school, I would go out camping with my grandfather. We would go and we would camp out back behind his house. He knew the guy that lived behind him. That guy had a huge mess of land and a pond on it. And he said, yeah, y'all can just go on back there. And there wasn't nothing back there. I mean, it was just nothing but woods. There was like a little road trail. There was like a field and woods everywhere. And that was it. Nothing else. And my grandfather and I, we would camp out down that way. And it was always great when my grandfather was there. But if he had to go out and get some wood at night for the fire, I don't know what it was. Some odd reason, I'd get a little scared. I don't know what would have happened if a bear came up. I don't know what my grandfather would have done. We didn't have a rifle or anything with us. But it was that presence that made all the difference. Presence means something. And when God is with us, we can overcome. So what do we do to get in God's presence? All the normal things. What are some of the things we can do to get close to God? Prayer, talk to Him. Study His Word. Worship. Listen to some good preaching. Be around godly people. All the normal, regular things. And that gets us close to God. Life will always be filled with things to fear. But notice number 2. Fear is a thief of control. Fear is a thief of control. Verse number 2. When evildoers assail me to eat up my flesh, my adversaries and foes, it is they who stumble and fall. There's a lot of imagery here being used. David being a shepherd gets his wild animals here. It's going to rip my flesh. A lot of imagery of enemies and battle, of political powers. The idea of those that are planning and bearing down on him are trying to do one thing. They're stealing control. He's not going to be in power anymore. He's not going to be around anymore. Listen, fear is a thief. And that thief tries to gain control over us. Think about it. Have you ever acted differently because of fear? Give you a different... Anybody ever had to be in a church in the middle of the night, like past midnight, when it's pitch dark outside? Anybody had to do that before? By the way, if it's the first time, it isn't any fun. I had a call, the very first church that I pastored, out in the middle of nowhere. And got a call, hey, can you turn a light off in a Sunday school classroom? Church was across the street. Again, in the country, hardly anything there. I think, oh, no big deal. I'm in my 20s. Nothing can defeat me. And I'll walk over and I'll go into the church. Now, little did I know, church had a vestibule a great deal like what we have. The thing was, make sure I get my dimensions correct here. So you would come in, but rather than the buildings being separate, sanctuary was connected to the education building by a door that was right there. Well, lo and behold, I didn't realize this. When I opened that door, a little vacuum seal happened that opened that door. Pitch dark, nobody around. I walk in, and what do I hear? I hear a door shut. I was like, Lord, just get me out of here safely. I zipped on down that way. I zipped on back on home. I locked up, and I was done. That fear stole control from me. I had it in my mind. I didn't have a care in the world. I was going to walk on in, go do what I needed to do, walk on back. What did that fear do? That fear controlled me. I walked a lot faster because a door shuts. That works with any fear. Fear steals control. Notice three very simple realities. Number one is when fear has control of our life, we are a slave to its whims. When fear has control of our life, we are a slave to its whims. A whim is defined as a sudden desire or change of mind, especially one that is unusual or unexplained. How many of y'all know who I'm talking about when I say General George Patton? World War II general. If you watch any of the History Channel about World War II, his name is going to come up. Amazing general. During World War II, a military governor met with General George Patton in Sicily. When he praised Patton highly for his courage and bravery, the general replied, "Sir, I'm not a brave man. The truth is, I am an utter craven coward. I have never been within the sound of gunshot or in the sight of battle in my whole life that I wasn't so scared that I had sweat in the palm of my hands." Years later, when Patton's autobiography was published, it contained this significant statement by the general. "I learned very early in my life never to take counsel of my fears." I thought, wow. Fear is going to enter into our life. It's going to creep in. But again, it's how we react to it. And we can either take the counsel of our fears, or we can do like David did. The Lord is my light, my salvation. The strength of my life, the stronghold of everything that I am. Therefore, I'm not going to fear, and I'm not going to listen to our fears. Second is this. When we control our life, we are a slave to our weaknesses. We are a slave to our weaknesses. I want to make sure we all understand this. I don't want to be in control of me. Me being in control of me is not a good thing. I want God to be in control. When I'm in control, I've got to be a slave to my weaknesses. Now, y'all know we went to the beach not long ago. We went to a place, we kind of got off diet. We were on vacation. It was all right. Calories don't count then, I don't think. Which was a wonderful little place. You ever at Carolina Beach, go to Celtic Creamery. It has an amazing selection of ice creams, but it has one in particular that I found. I thought I had found an amazing flavor last year when they had the C and the B. They had a salted honey ice cream. Oh my goodness gracious. I found one that was beyond compare. Rather good banana pudding. It is a banana pudding ice cream. And quite frankly, I wonder, you probably need a license to be able to distribute it. It is just amazing. And when you think about it, I need to make sure that something else beyond just my appetite is controlling me. Because I know full well what I would do if it was just me that was in control. Be like, it's breakfast, let's go to Celtic Creamery. Bananas a fruit, let's just go. That's fine, I had fruit for breakfast. You got milk in there. That's part of a healthy meal. I'm weak when it comes to so many things, which gives us the solution. The third reality is when God is in control of our life, everything is a slave to Him. Verse 2, David says this, when evildoers assail me to eat up my flesh, my adversaries and foes, it is they who stumble and fall. Interesting. The people that were against God, the people that were against David, the people that were fighting against him, they were the ones that were going to fall. It's the idea that when God's in control fully, we don't have to worry about any enemies. Because God is in control. And that's why David wasn't fearing. Think about this. Regardless of our fear, God is still sovereign over COVID-19. He had a purpose and a plan. When I was growing up, I was a fearful child. The school that I was in at the time had an after-school daycare, basically, filled with my classmates and all of the teachers that I knew. Now, it used to be, I would get picked up the exact same time every day. I wouldn't go to the after-school care. My mom was going to come and pick me up, or grandparents or somebody. They were going to get me. Everything was going to be okay. One day, mom couldn't make it. Grandparents couldn't make it. I had to stay in after school an extra few hours. The same as all the other kids that were there. You know what? I had a horrible time. You know why? I had that fear. Mom still loved me. Mom was coming. Mom just couldn't make it at that time. That fear stole joy from me. Fear will always try to make us give up control, to lead us on a pathway to saying, hey, you want to be in control. But the reality is we have to surrender that over to God. Finally, this, real quick. Fear lies about the future. Fear lies about the future. Verse 3, though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war arise against me, yet I will be confident. These two things talk about the future. You got a war, you got an army, you got all this stuff that's coming. Oh no, the future is bleak. But David wasn't consumed with fear. His confidence was in God. Notice three things. Fear makes us think that we have the same power as God. God has control and power over whatever future might come. But you know what? That's what fear whispers into our ear. Hey, you fear enough, you worry enough, you can change. How many of you have ever tried to worry yourself into a better future? I'm going to worry this sickness out of me. I'm going to worry myself into a good grade. I'm going to worry myself into a great sermon. It doesn't work, does it? Worry doesn't do that. Fear doesn't do that. No, because we're not God. The lie is fear. The lie of fear is, oh, we got a terrible thing out there. Let's worry and let's fret about it, and it will make things better. It never will. Fear makes us think we have the same power as God. But notice, fear also makes us think we have the ability to predict the future. I just know what's going to happen. Oh, this horrible, bad, terrible, awful, no good thing is going to happen. When the reality is, no one ever really knows what the future holds. I did a little research. Now, this is one of those times that really just amazingly, just amazes me. The 1984 election. Ronald Reagan versus Walter Mondale. Any guess what the polls showed? Or not? I'm sorry. I apologize. Wrong one. Not the 84 election, the 1980 election. Excuse me. I'm wrong on that. I wrote that wrong. In 1980 election, January of that same year, got a couple of months out for all of the before November election. Any idea what percentage of the vote or voters said, I'm going to vote for Jimmy Carter? Anybody take a wild stab in the dark on the guess?
Probably the majority. He was the incumbent president.
66%. 66% said, no, I'm going to go for Carter. Anybody remember what the vote count was on like states won by Reagan? It was like 48. Who would have predicted that? Fear will always make us think the absolute worst. That God's got a future, and that future's in His hands. Finally, this. Faith reminds us of who we are, who God is, and that in itself eliminates fear. The old song goes, He's got the whole world in His hands. There's verses that go, He's got everybody here right in His hand. He's got everybody here right in His hand. He's got everybody here right in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. If religion was a thing money could buy, the whole wide world in His hands. The rich would live and the poor would die, the whole world in His hands. It's interesting. If it was in our hands, oh, what a mess this world would be in. But let us not forget, this world, this life that we live, is all in His hands. So in conclusion, how do we live by faith during COVID-19? It'd probably be better if you mark COVID-19 out, just put 2020. We're going to go into the history books. It's going to have chapters. It's going to have like 12 chapters on 2020. It's going to go January, February, March, April, May, June. It's going to go crazy, and it's going to go, have murder hornets, and it's going to have earthquakes and hurricanes and all sorts of crazy things. The great toilet paper shortage of 2020. What do we do? How do we live by faith? Let me encourage you. Learn more about God every day. Do your devotion. Listen to a preacher. Learn a Bible verse. That's one of the things that hopefully by the end of the week, I'm going to mail out to all of our students that went to Caswell. I'm going to mail out some cards to help them remember Bible verses. One of the big things that we were going to try to do. Secondly is this. Develop a vibrant prayer life. We got time. We got a little pause. Let's learn and have a vibrant prayer life. Also this. Don't make fear your friend. Don't make fear your friend. How many of y'all, way back before we had this whole time of COVID-19, loved having friends over? Loved going to friends, going to Bojangles, going to wherever. I mean, that was fun. I mean, you go down almost any given day of the week, go down to Bojangles, half the population of Hillsborough was in Bojangles. You can get anything done. I mean, you could have like a town council meeting down in there. Our friends are who we keep close. Don't make fear the friend that you keep. Kick him out. Say, Lord, come on in. In the midst of this whole COVID-19 thing, know the facts and act accordingly. Don't be controlled by fear. Don't be controlled by rumors. Know the facts and act accordingly. I'm going to say this one last thing, and I do it mostly as a reaction to something that happened on Monday. 1 Corinthians 9, verses 20 through 27. I'm not going to read it. I have it in front of me. But basically, Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 9 is saying, you know what? When I'm with the Jews, I'm going to live like the Jews to win the Jews. They're ruled by the law of Moses, but I'm not. But I live by the law to win them. And when I'm with the people who are ruled by the law, I forget about the law to win them. Of course, I never really forget about the law of God. In fact, I am ruled by the law of Christ. When I'm with people whose faith is weak, I live as they do to win them. I do everything I can to win everyone I possibly can. I was with ministers on Monday, and as we were out and about, we were at the cutting board. That was where the meeting took place, and we're out front afterwards talking, and of course we're outside, so we don't have our mask on. And people are coming in. I'm like, okay, well, I'm backing up a little bit, and all. And one of the guys goes out and he opens the door up. He doesn't have his mask on. And the people that were coming in really didn't want to get close to him. The lady looked at me and said, thank you. You know, my mask was up and all. And they walked in. I got to thinking about that. Now, the guys that we're with are good guys. They love Christ. They love others. But I got to thinking about that, and I said, you know what? If any of us went and tried to witness to that person, I might be about the only one that could get my foot in the door, because those two guys kind of pushed them away. We were at the beach, and I was getting ready to set up the umbrella. Again, we're out on the beach, wind's blowing, the sun is bearing down hot, and I was getting ready to kind of dig a hole. A guy came up to me and said, hey, I hate to ask you this, but can you move further away from me? We were a good distance away already, but I was like, you know what? There's no reason in this world why I shouldn't just move a little bit further away. Why? Because I want to do everything I can to make it an opportunity for the gospel. To say, you know what? I want to be able to reach out and talk to somebody. I don't want to shut down a conversation. I want to open it up. So I was like, no, it's no problem. You know, we moved like another 4 or 5 feet away and dug a hole, put the thing in, and we had a great day at the beach. But I'm trying to, you know, in working through all of this, to encourage everybody in the midst of all of these things. Don't be ruled by fear. Live in faith, but in the same time, we do everything we can to live according to what we've been told by the law, what we've been told by experts and all. But we live in such a way where the highest priority we want is to be able to win people to Christ. Be able to say, you know what? I don't know all about this. I didn't study virology in college and seminary. I mean, I didn't even study the common cold in seminary. But you know what? I want to do everything I can to help somebody say, you know what? You care about me. Therefore, that's my encouragement to everyone here. Questions, comments, observations? Y'all heard my phone go off, so you know what time it is. All right. Let's bow in a word of prayer. We'll go ahead and be dismissed. Father, thank you so much for this night, for everyone here, and for the opportunity we have to bring glory to your name. And Lord, I pray now that you would go with us and give us safety in our journeys. Father, I pray you'd help us. We know the specter of fear is going to try to get into our life. But Lord, I pray that you would help us to remember some of the things that were said here tonight, that we might trust in you to live by faith. Father, let us go forth now as your ambassadors, spreading the light of your gospel to a dark and a dying generation. For it's in your name we pray.